no identity crisis whatsoever.
None whatsoever.
Yep.
None whatsoever. And
as of right now, he doesn't.
don't let Twitter try to convince you that you're anything other than. You can embrace both of them, but just understand at the end of the day, they see you. They don't see you as, oh, he's
right. But who is they? And why should he be so concerned about how they see him, Shannon Sharpe? Is it because you're so concerned about how they see you? Because you're quote unquote black? Once again, what does it mean to be black? What is that? Is that a real term? Is that a real designation? Is that a real history? Or is that what we were called, what we were referred to? Things of that sort. And if we were called that, what's the reason why we were called that? Do you think that it was for our benefit or for our detriment? See, these are the questions that these wokey niggas, they don't want to answer. These are the conversations, since they love talking about racial conversations, that they're not ready to have. This is why the Israelite topic has really blown up on the internet, on social media, and on TV. The job of the Boule Negro is to douse out that fire. They barely want to even engage in that conversation on television because they know that's a fucking landmine. Because the Bible is going to invalidate the concept of the Caucasian Jew being the Israelite of the Bible through and through. They know that already. So they have to attack the messenger because the message is clear as day.
So I'm fascinated by this because I'm fascinated by life. But on this issue, I always just defer to you.
And that's part of the problem. You're a cuck with no backbone when it comes to race, Skip Bayless, because you're so concerned that at almost 70 years old, being from Oklahoma, people are just going to jot you down as a racist if you stand against any of the nonsense that is being emitted by the liberal Negro. That's why you guys need an intelligent, moderate, or quote-unquote conservative person on your show. I don't care if they're so-called white or black, but you need someone there to act as a check and a balance to offset the bullshit of Shannon Sharpe, because he does not know a fucking thing about race. But because he's basically sitting in an echo chamber, he's becoming more and more encouraged with his nonsense. And you can see even the people who quote-unquote support his rhetoric, you can see the quality of their intellect. You can see what wavelength they're on. It's nothing beneficial or long-lasting. It's just frustrated people encouraging another frustrated person in Shannon Sharpe.
Say goes with me. But let's talk about Tiger Woods, because that was the first time as a white guy I sort of faced this issue of, wait a second, he just told Oprah soon after the 97 Masters, I resent being called black.
Yeah.
You do?
He resented it.
He resents being called black, and he's invented a new word for what he is, combination, which is...
Look, let me make this very clear. Tiger Woods is very confused. He was very confused when he came up with that name. But he's no less confused than the average so-called Negro who says, I'm proud to be black. What does that even mean, you're proud to be black? Are you proud of your history? When you say black history, what is that? Is that you trying to scoop up everything that you learn about someone who had quote-unquote melanin? Or are you truly interested in tracing back your real lineage, your seed line, your ancestry, and maybe getting more particular? The reason why so-called blacks do not want to trace their ancestry is because they don't want to have to commit to tribal rituals and tribal customs. That's a little bit too much for them. What if the average liberal so-called black woman traced back her ancestry and realized now she has to keep her head covered and wear a long dress, when she's been accustomed to for her whole life dressing like a $2 hoe out in the middle of the street? What if the so-called black man learned what his actual garments were and that he should have facial hair and not eat pork, when he's been accustomed to having pork chops and sides of ham for Thanksgiving, walking up and down the street with some skinny jeans on with a damn red bandana hanging out his back pocket? What's he gonna do then? So it's easier to claim the pro-black shit.
Caucasian, black, Native American, because his father, I think, had a quarter Cherokee Native American in him, and Asian, because his mom is Thai, okay? Kabla Nation. I resent being called black. We're about to have Rob Parker on the show.
Another idiot.
In the mind, and Rob became the biggest Tiger Woods fan. He could care less about golf.
That was his first mistake. He became a fan of another man.
He tells the story. I
On his
spent
honeymoon.
half of my honeymoon watching Tiger win the Masters.
Shows you how mentally disturbed he is. He's on his honeymoon with his new bride, and he's thinking about Tiger Woods instead of getting all up in that coochie. Shows you how mentally disturbed Mr. Rob Parker is.
Okay. Well, that didn't last long. Okay, but
Yeah, that's why the broad left him. She there on the bed waiting for him to do his job, and he's in the living room yelling and screaming at the TV about Tiger Woods.
the point was, as soon as he heard I resent being called black, he bought all this Tiger paraphernalia, hat and T-shirt, all this. He said he took it to Goodwill, and I believe it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Whew. So, what do you do with that? So, from my perspective, I'm all about, hey, be whoever you feel like being.
Right.
If that's who you want to identify as, if you want to identify as Cobbler Nation, that's your right. That you can do whatever you want.
Let me say this also very quickly. The real condemnation of someone like a Shannon Sharpe or these other liberal woke Negroes on TV is that if you were to see Shannon Sharpe in a barbershop surrounded by other so-called black men who had knowledge of the truth, or if you were to see Shannon Sharpe speaking with, one of the members of the Nation of Islam, one of the higher ranking members, or even Farrakhan, he will be fully in agreement with the notion of the people of the book being so-called black. But on television, he has to put on a different air. That's why I state the liberal Negro has to be like a chameleon. It's almost like a cop who goes undercover, or an intelligence agent who goes undercover for years and years, and they lose track of who they really are.
Now it hit you when you heard I resent being called black.
Yes, it didn't go over well with me.
Not well. Does he have?
Does anybody give a shit? Did it go over well with you or with your white girlfriend? Because you've had a whole bunch of white girlfriends since you've been in the professional football league.
To say that? Sure he does. Again, do you have the right to say that's just
You're
wrong?
full of caca?
Okay,
Sure.
you do.
Yeah, you would know. Because you're definitely full of shit your damn self, Shannon Sharpe. Once again, Shannon Sharpe was with a white woman just a few years ago named Katie Kellner. And when he came out to California to do the show with Skip Bayless, I guess that's what broke their quote-unquote relationship up.
Okay, so this is another interesting discussion I had way back when on First Take. We didn't do it. We touched it on the air, but it was mostly off the air. This is pre-Stephen A. on First Take. But I had a discussion with three of my black colleagues. I believe it was Rob and Jamel Hill and Chris Broussard.
Damn, the three blind mice? You had a conversation with Rob Parker, Jamel Hill, and Chris X, a.k.a. Chris Broussard. What the hell were y'all talking about? Probably the dumbest racial conversation in the history of conversations.
Talking about Blake Griffin. I went to high school with his mother, who happened to be 2 years ahead of me, and she was the head cheerleader. I did not know her because she was the most popular girl in school. Mm-hmm. She was tall, she was redheaded, and she was porcelain skin.
Yeah.
And
look how Shannon smiled when Skip Bayless said she was porcelain skin. Shannon was like, oh, fit, just like I like them. Perfect. Not one drop of melanin.
When I first heard that, wait a second, she's Blake's mom, it amazed me because
I said to myself, wait a minute. That drop-dead beautiful Nordic princess spread her legs for an orangutan.
I just wouldn't have made the connection.
Right.
She married a prominent high school basketball coach, like a legendary high school basketball coach in Oklahoma City.
Right.
And here comes Blake, and Taylor came first, and then Blake Griffin.
Right.
Okay, so I was asking my three black...
And Blake Griffin is another example of the strangeness of genetics, because his dad, I believe, is Haitian and is extremely dark-skinned. And Blake came out like a damn... he looked just like a damn carrot.
Legs. Is it okay for me to have some rooting interest in Blake? Because I went to the same high school as Mom did, right?
Yeah.
Skip Bayless, you're being disingenuous. I remember that time period where Blake Griffin first became a popular NBA player. And you did not say that you wanted to root for Blake Griffin because you knew his mom. You said you were rooting for Blake Griffin because he was a great white ball player in the NBA. That's what you said.
rooting interest.
Right.
I'm not claiming him as white. I'm just saying,
Yes, you were.
can I root for him?
Right.
And we went back and forth, and it seemed like two of them said, yeah, it's okay. But Chris Broussard said, well, don't forget the one drop. You know,
Yeah.
You better not forget the one drop. I mean, shit, that's about the only thing that makes Chris Broussard a so-called Negro. He got about a half drop of blackness in him. That's Chris Broussard looking in the mirror every day, rubbing shoe polish on his face, saying, God, please make me blacker. Chris X.
one drop is the one drop.
Yeah.
And once you got the one drop, he is black. As
Right.
a lot.
No, one drop has nothing to do with blackness because blackness doesn't exist. But that's another example of liberal blacks who masquerade as quote-unquote pro-blacks, taking the ideologies of the Caucasian and regurgitating them as fact.
As he might be,
Right.
Chris Broussard's
Yeah.
fairly light-skinned.
Fairly light-skinned. Chris Broussard is off-white. Like, come on.
One drop, black.
Right.
Right? So, would
Chris Broussard make Pat Mahomes look like Wesley Snipes.
if Blake Griffin gets pulled over, what is he?
He black.
Okay.
Yeah, he black. Yeah. I would love to see Shannon Sharp in a car and get pulled over by the cops. I bet you before the cops even get there, Shannon Sharp hops out the car, does a full tap dance routine with blackface on, and then gets down on one knee and eats a damn slice of watermelon.
Very much. So now I will conclude my sort of education on this. My wife, Ernestine, came from a Jewish mother, but father, Italian, raised Catholic, goes to a Methodist church with me. But if you ask Ernestine, what are you? I'm Jewish, because
Right.
that's what the culture taught us.
Right.
Absolutely. The so-called Caucasian Jews believe that what makes them Jewish is through the line of the mother, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever and is not corroborated by scripture at all.
if the mom is
Right.
Jewish, you identify as Jewish.
Correct.
Okay?
Shannon Sharp, what do you mean correct? Like you know what you're talking about.
I've pointed out to her that, okay, but you didn't have an Afro-Italian father because you're white.
Right.
So you don't have that identity crisis
Right.
of your skin
Right.
is, you don't have dark skin.
I think the biggest, I think what makes me and a lot of other blacks proud is that seems like when biracial.
Shannon Sharp, please stop speaking for all so-called black people. Who you're speaking for is yourself and them pea-brain woke niggas on the internet who don't know anything about race and who have low self-esteem just like you.
They become prominence, all of a sudden they forget the black side. And then all of a sudden it seems like Tiger, for
Like you did when you dated them string of white women.
all the time he was growing up, nobody referred to him as combination. He never mentioned anything about his Asian background or his Native American background.
So he should forget about all that to make you feel better about yourself. I got it. A better argument would be, is Tiger, you are whatever your father is. So what's the C line of your dad? Because that's what you are. But if you're both speaking on the same wavelength, which is, I'm just going to call myself whatever I prefer to call myself, because once again, Combination is no more ridiculous than the one drop rule that Shannon Sharp has espoused about 10 minutes ago. And what Chris X, aka Chris Broussard, espoused according to the testimony of Mr. Skip Bayless. It's no more ridiculous. If someone were to sit down and really think about it, is Combination any more strange or ridiculous than the one drop rule? The answer is no. As a matter of fact, the one drop rule is way more ridiculous because at least Tiger Woods is talking about something that actually is real in his mind. That being that he had Combination ancestry consisting of Caucasian, Black, and Asian. There's no person on the planet Earth that only has one drop of quote-unquote black blood. There's no such thing as black blood. There's black DNA, so-called black DNA strands. So they're just talking shit as usual.
America.
And he's told many stories about discrimination that he
Right.
felt on golf courses.
Right.
They're mostly military golf
Right.
courses. But how, wait, you're going to play? Yeah,
Right.
I'm going to play.
And it
The reason why Tiger Woods was on those military golf courses is because he was a Monarch asset, Monarch programmed super athlete.
seems that when they rise to prominence is that they forget about the
Okay.
blackness. We saw that with OJ. OJ's like, I ain't black, I'm OJ.
It's a good.
Right, O.J. Simpson said, I'm not black, I'm O.J., which is the same thing that Martin Luther King said when he stated that he wanted to be judged based on the conduct and the content of his character and not his skin color. But when Martin Luther King says it, it's okay. When O.J. Simpson says it, he's a sellout. What makes O.J. Simpson a sellout, Mr. Shannon Sharp? Oh, I know. Because he dated a white woman, right? Oops, same thing you've done for the last 30 years.
And so, okay, OJ, and then what happens, Skip? He get jammed up, and the first thing he do, he got pictures of the cookout, he got all the black stuff, and he ain't had them pictures, they was in the trunk, a Foot Locker somewhere.
It's a good
but
example.
when they brought the jury out,
Yep.
he had them all on the walls and everything. You like, and Marshall Clark would tell a story like, oh, stop. Now, you know good well he ain't got no black friends.
How does anybody know the type of friends that O.J. Simpson has? I'll have you know that two of his best friends throughout the 1980s were Marcus Allen, as well as Michael Jordan's current quote-unquote bestie, or one of his best friends, Ahmad Rashad. Those are facts.
But, and that just, and for Patrick Mahomes to say, yeah, I'm black, I'm worth $500 million, but I'm black. And that makes the black community, because so many...
No, it doesn't. Niggas don't care. Other than people like you who once again have low self-esteem. And there's no such thing as black. So all Patrick Mahomes is saying is, I don't know who the fuck I am.
It seems like once you, if you're biracial, or you become, even if you're not biracial, you
No such thing as biracial. You are whatever your father is.
become something, you want to move away from blackness. And it hurts. It hurts the community, because whites...
No, it doesn't. What hurts the so-called black community is the lack of authoritative fathers in the home. The lack of authoritative fathers who are able to teach their sons a culture that they know the man next door to them is teaching their children as well. That's what's hurting our people, Shannon Sharp. Not athletes who are not claiming their quote-unquote blackness.
Stop trying to be white. Asians never stop trying to be Asian.
I do know some white people who try to be black.
Okay?
Plenty of them, as well as so-called Asians who are trying to be black. This thing that these liberal niggas love to spew about how the other races don't have identity issues, it's nothing but buffoonery and nonsense.
Yeah. Just for they
I know
and things like that, but you
No.
you might have that, but they don't want that black skin. They want to be almost. So Patrick Mahomes, man, kudos for you to go out there and say,
I do admire him even more after I read this interview.
yes,
These are mature quotes from him.
it is.
He nailed it. It came across as very forthright, and he's very in command of who he is and where he's headed.
Well, Patrick Mahomes is in command of a lot of things. That's why his teammates love him. As a quarterback, he's great. He's almost perfect. But he is being put through this woke programming, so it's going to be interesting to see how he's able to crawl out of this rabbit hole when the time comes.
And excuse me, at the end of the day, guess what? Tiger, he went through what he went through. Who welcomed him back with open arms? Magic Week Tiger.
Bullshit. The so-called black community, especially woke niggas, they have this thing where they're like, oh yeah, we supported you when you went on trial. We supported you this week. When have so-called black people ever stopped a so-called black person from going to prison or getting in trouble when they were in trouble? Never in history. Okay, so I mean, the support of the so-called black community is like frosting on a cake. It's just empty calories. What real support is a strong community with a strong economy. And you can only have a strong economy within your community when you have a strong culture, because you're engaging in commerce with one another. When you engage in commerce, now you have money to buy the judge. You have money to buy the jury. You have money to buy the case. That's why other races are able to get off on certain things, because they're able to offset the charge. Niggas like Shannon Sharp think support is, hey Tiger, I was rooting for you over Twitter. Like, nigga, please.
Community. OJ did what he did. Who's the black community? Michael Jackson, rest his soul. When they go through something, the community...
Nonsense. The community don't do shit. Most of the so-called black community don't even support one another in their own neighborhoods. Just stop. You talking about people on Twitter and going outside of the fucking courthouse looking for attention. Real support is the re-implementation of a strong culture and a check and a balance so that there's no more confusion in the so-called black community. That's how we'll get crime to drop, by holding ourselves and each other accountable. Not this fluff that you're talking about.
Yeah, we forgive it, remember? Even though you turned your back on us, we're going to welcome you back with open arms.
Like how you turned your back on Ray Lewis over that whole Kaepernick thing? That was one of the biggest scumbag moves that I can remember. How you threw your so-called friend under the bus over Colin Kaepernick. And then come to find out, Colin Kaepernick cut you off.
Well, after Tiger went through what he went through, you hung in.
We hung in there with him.
Yeah.
When everybody beat him down.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, everybody just hung in with Tiger Woods. Black people were holding his hands as he went to rehab. Sure.
Good point.
I'm just saying, Ty.
You ain't saying shit.
What about his documentary? He got a.
Oh yeah. I don't know that he's taken flack for it, but HBO has a 2-part documentary on Tiger, and it's all what they're 2 white directors, and they're taking flack about, well, where's the representation here? Where's do you have a black representation? Do you have minority? Do you have Asian?
But yeah, that's what. Remember what we.
Right, but how many black directors are interested in that project?
About everybody says the Black Lives Matter, and we want to get more diverse, but when it
nonsense. The only people that are saying Black Lives Matter are woke pea-brains. Idiots like you, who either have never read their mission statement or who have read it and just say to yourself, I'm not going to talk about that because right now the ball is rolling.
to doing these projects, it's the same thing. White men doing it.
Okay. Well said.
Shannon Sharp, you have money. Why don't you bankroll the Tiger Woods documentary? Let's wait on Shannon Sharp to actually be about some action, as opposed to all this talking he does.
Yeah, I ain't got no problem with that. But
yes, you do.
Telling me we want to be diversified. You want diversity, and we want to have a representation of.
Well, they have to say that because low self-esteem having niggas keep trying to troll them and keep trying to harass them and stalk them. You woke niggas keep trolling and harassing the so-called white man and woman, as opposed to us forming our own thing.
Women, black, Asian, don't give me that. And then when it comes to these projects,
don't give me that. The so-called Asians, they have their own movie studios over in China and Hong Kong, and the East Indians, they have their own movies. It's so-called black people who are still trying to suck on the white man's titties.
Shooting these $100 million movies, $20 million movies, and it's the same thing. But I thought we was doing diversity. I thought 2020 was about change.
Tyler Perry has his own movie studio lot out there in Atlanta, Georgia. Stop bitching and complaining. Let's do our own thing. It's not better on the white man's side, Shannon Sharp. Go to see a psychiatrist, please. Get help.
Yeah.
We still have a long way to go, is what we're getting at.
No, I beg to disagree with you, Jenny Taft. We do not have no damn long way to go. We have nowhere to go. And when the so-called black man comes to accept that, that is when we'll start to head in the right direction. Because that's when we'll finally figure out that the answer is not in the so-called white man, it's within us.